Hey everyone, Katie and Sergeant Steele here, and today we're going to talk about the Wyvern. Now, I love this model. Talking about the aesthetics, it is a really cool looking model. It's actually one of the earliest guard artillery pieces I've ever painted. Actually, see the little targeting screen I did there. Very proud of that. Almost a decade ago, about 8-9 years ago, I painted this. My skills have come a long way, but I'm still very proud of this model and how it turned out. I think it's very cool. It's got some great detail on it. This and a Hydra both. And so, very cool. But let's get into what this unit does and why you may be interested in putting one into your army. All right, first, its stat line. It is movement 10, toughness 9, 3-up save, 11 wounds, leadership 7, OC 3. Now, if you watch my Manticore video, please note that this is 1 toughness lower than the Manticore. I think that's because this is technically like one of those old open-topped vehicles. It's not a rule that exists anymore. But to demonstrate that, they've given it a lower toughness, and that's fair. So something to keep in mind there. It is a different toughness than the Manticore, so do pay attention to the stat lines there. Now let's get into its weapons. Of course, you get a heavy bolter, heavy flamer on the front. You can take a hunter-killer missile, and then you have what makes it special: the Wyvern Quad Storm Shard Mortar. Now get ready and pay attention, because I'm about to list off a whole bunch of words to you. It is blast, it ignores cover, it's heavy, it's indirect fire, and it's twin linked. Good lord. So make sure to double check your weapon stat line before using it to make sure you remember everything this thing does. It is 48-inch range, 2d6 shots. This is why a lot of people haven't been happy with it in 10th edition. It used to have 4d6 shots, and they cut it in half in 10th. It is ballistic skill 4, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage. So with a stat line like that, this thing is made to shoot at infantry. Maybe elites, but it doesn't really have armored penetration. So you're not really going to be breaking through Space Marine, Terminator armor, or anything like that. But you are going to be taking out cultists, other guardsmen, Drukari and Eldar, for example. You'll be able to definitely deal damage to them. With Blast, you're going to be great against large groups of models. With Ignores Cover, you're going to be great at getting those models who are buried on an objective. And we're going to talk about indirect fire rules in just a moment. With Heavy, you're going to get +1 to your hit roll. And then with Twin Linked, you're going to be re-rolling your wound rolls. That's really good. At strength 5, you're already wounding most things on a 3 if you're shooting infantry. And so now, that allows you to re-roll those 1s and 2s that you might have on your wound roll. So all very beneficial, all really great. Overall, pretty effective set of rules for it to have. Now, what makes it special? Let's talk about that, and then let's talk about what I would do with this and how I would run it. So it is Suppression Bombardment. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, select one enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, that was hit by 1 or more attacks made with this model's Wyvern Quad Storm Shard Mortar this phase. Until the start of your next turn, that enemy unit is suppressed. Okay? While a unit is suppressed, each time a model in that unit makes an attack. Didn't say ranged, didn't say melee, just said attacked. Subtract 1 from the hit roll. Okay. So if you're shooting this at things that are not monsters or vehicles, that's, cavalry, infantry, bikes, swarms, that kind of stuff, you're going to suppress them. That's really interesting to think about. So in the -1 to hit, let's talk about that. Remember, it's not ranged attacks, it's just attacks. -1 to hit on attack rolls. That's shooting and melee. So if your opponent is going to shoot you and you don't want them to hit you as well, you could use the Wyvern to diminish your shooting capability. If your opponent is about to charge you and you want to diminish their melee capability, use the Wyvern. If you want to charge your opponent and you want to diminish their melee capability, shoot them with the Wyvern then charge them in the charge phase. Now I get that. You may be thinking, oh, Cajun Sergeant's deal. Why would we be charging as guard players? Because you want to score. Because you want to score objectives, you want to take out units. And sometimes las guns don't cut it, and flamers don't cut it, and plasma guns don't cut it, and you got 2 or 3, 4 or 5 wounds left on a unit. You need to get in there and get the job done. I do it all the time. I'm a very aggressive guard player. I charge every time I play. Trust me. Okay. So this obviously has some utility. Where I think people are unhappy with it is its killing ability, because it has no armor penetration. You're going to be tough to actually cut through enemy models with saves. Say like Space Marines, right? You're strength 5, so you're wounding a Space Marine on a 3. But with no AP, they're going to save on a 3 up. Now you do ignore cover, so that is beneficial. So where this really comes in is like cultists and other horde kind of infantry that don't have good saves, you'll be able to just, really just shoot at them and take them out. But how does this all get impacted also by the new indirect fire rules? So June 2024, balanced data slate changed the indirect fire rules. Now you are -1 to hit. Okay. Your opponent gets a benefit of cover. Okay. And you always miss on a 1, 2, or 3. Ooh, now that's when you're shooting out of line of sight. Okay? So keep that in mind. So this is something where you could still benefit from a Scout Sentinel. Using Daring Recon to get yourself reroll 1s. Fantastic. Now that you're rerolling 1s, you can try to reroll those into 4, 5s, and 6s. That's going to help you out a little bit on the hit rolls, and you're always going to miss. But the one thing the Wyvern has here is it has heavy, so you're not worried about the -1 to hit, because heavy negates that. Your opponent gets the benefit of cover. You're not worried about that. This ignores cover. So actually, the Wyvern has already negated 2 out of 3 of the debuffs of indirect fire. That's really good. That's something to keep in mind, is how this ignores those negative modifiers, those penalties, okay? So this can just ignore that. Then you can think about how this is going to play more effectively. So really, I think you have multiple uses for this. You could take out hordes, cults, light infantry. You can buff it, you could not buff it. It's all right. The most you're going to give it reroll 1s. It already has enough buffs itself to negate most of the other negatives. All right, so that's awesome. You could think about using it as a direct fire weapon, but I really don't think that's its utility. It doesn't have a lot of killing power. It does okay at killing, right? With the ignoring cover, that's going to get your opponents a lot of times, because they're like, oh, I'm in a building, right? Oh, I'm in ruins. Oh, I'm behind this thing. So I'm now at a 4-up save and now at a 3-up save. And you just go, nah, I ignore it. You're back to your 5-up save. You're back to your 6-up save. And I'm going to clear out your hordes. Your opponents are going to be pretty devastated about that. Trust me. Then, the other thing this does is with the ability it has to suppress. That's where I really think this comes into play. So you pick a unit in your opponent's army, right? And you want that unit to be less effective next turn, or even during your turn, because it lasts until the start of your next turn, right? So it's going to last the rest of the battle round, essentially, or into the next one until you start your turn. You're going to make them -1 to their attack rolls. That's really good, right? That's 16% less chance of hitting. So it could be a shooting unit, it could be a melee unit, as long as it's not a monster or vehicle. Now, it's a little bit of the downside. With the changes in 2024, June here, Guard now get squadron units, like this is, get lethals against monsters and vehicles. I would not shoot the Wyvern into vehicles, though. Or monsters. I just wouldn't do it. It doesn't have the damage output, it doesn't have the AP, it doesn't have the strength. You would only do it in a desperate attempt to knock off the last 1 or 2 wounds on a model. Because it's really just not going to be effective at doing it. So just you ignore the detachment rule and use it for its true intended purpose, which is shooting infantry. I wouldn't even put this into like something where you could get direct line of sight, so you could hit on like 3s or 2s and reroll 1s. I wouldn't even do that. I would just keep this in the backfield and think about either you need to clear a unit off an objective, that's a light armored unit, or impacting the die roll of your opponent's attacks. And so doing things like shooting a Devastator squad and giving it -1 to hit, shooting a melee Space Marine squad, and now instead of them hitting on 2s or 3s, they're hitting on 3s or 4s, right? That's a big deal, and your opponent's not going to like it. And the Wyvern's pretty cheap right now in points. And so this is a way that you can modify your opponent's army and expend very little points kind of doing so. And one of the other tactics you could do with this is Fields of Fire, which is going to give you an extra AP -1. So that is one thing you could do. So if you don't know Fields of Fire, it's a 2 CP stratagem for Astra Militarum. After Astra Militarum unit, I think a squadron or infantry has shot a unit, all the rest of your units get an extra the AP -1 when shooting that target. And so you could give your Wyvern AP -1, or the Executioner, the Exterminator, Leman Russ Exterminator, always flip those two around in my mind, with the autocannons could also give you AP -1. But if you're wasting damage 3 autocannon shots into infantry just to get AP -1 on this, that's ineffective. So Fields of Fire is really the way you'd want to go if you want to give this AP -1. With Ignore Its Cover, that's going to be really helpful too. It's going to help you guarantee trimming out the hordes of infantry. And I think we're going to see more battle line. I think we're going to see more infantry in match play. So that's something good to keep in mind. I really think the Wyvern has a place. I think it's being overlooked. I think it does more than we give it credit for. And so dust off your Wyvern, or go pick one up off the shelf at your local gaming store and try it out. Modify the attacks of your opponent and see how they react. I'm very curious about that. So that's it. That's all I got for you today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've been enjoying all the videos. If you don't know, I'll be updating all of my artillery units with the June 2024 updates, because the Balanced Data Slate did a lot of changes for Guard and definitely for artillery. So I'll be updating all those. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and look out for the other ones as they're released as well. Please like and subscribe if you have been enjoying the content, and come back and watch some more. But as always, have fun wargaming, and remember, Cadia stands.